So thanks for coming back after the break. It's good to see the room still full. So we're going to get straight into the next part of our ESP&R safety workshop, and I'd like to introduce Bettina Schleidt, who's a key member of our work with ESP&R. She's supported a number of these events and workshops, so it's great to be able to get her input for the rest of this morning's session. Bettina.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. Welcome from my side as well. Interactive workshop is what we said as an introduction, and I would like to hold it with Bruce. So I'm not the kind of someone standing at the desk for explaining or presenting some things, but I'm more walking around. And as it is a workshop, it's perhaps somehow to understand, or at least to expect, that we would like to change the habit, the behavior a bit. You know that we, in the first sessions until now, asked you to use Slido to ask some questions and to get them answered, hopefully, afterwards. This time, we would like to change it and to say we ask questions that we want to know answers from you guys, sitting here next to each other. First one will be just for the warm-up question around human factors, but the other ones will be around handling automation and in correlation, relation to flight path management during flying a helicopter. And also perhaps some ideas, what you think, what might be the future of automation, and your wishes, your ideas, something you would like to give us as a team, as EASA also, on our way to continue with this topic of automation and flight path management. And we heard, we all heard about how much human factors are involved, and that's why, for sure, it's important to also focus on human factors in this case. Next one, okay. So we talk about human factors, human-machine interface. We already talked about this, so I won't talk too much and too long about this anymore. And also to get your experiences. So to put it back again, we ask questions and we would like you to give us ideas of what is your experience in all these things we heard over the last 1.5 days. So what are human factors? Some perspectives. I also brought some presentation slides with me, but if we discuss, I put much more focus on getting your input and your information and your experiences than giving you these presentation slides, because you can read them afterwards anyway, get them through EASA. So it's much more important and focus on your input in this session and wrap-up session of our day workshop. So it's handling, behavior, automation, what we heard over the day, technology in helicopter flying and using different helicopter technology. It's also about managing a flight, navigation. We also already heard a lot about this. And at the end of the day, safety is the outcome. Fun also, for sure. It's not only about safety, but also about fun. But these are the main topics for today. And we can say the wrap-up of what we heard this morning also. So first round to try if it works with Slido is now that I would like to ask you to discuss with your neighbor. If you don't have a neighbor, you can just discuss it with yourself, for sure. What are human factors for you? And we would just like to try out a bit, so we can change to Slido now. You see again how you can log in if you haven't done it yet, and to hear what are human factors for you, also in relation to automation for sure, but now at the moment regarding helicopter flying. And we will see what comes out, so you can discuss it and then you can put it in. You can also put it in directly for sure. There's no discussion as far as I see. And perhaps one information is that we will store all the data or the answers that you give in this session, and we will work with that. We will analyze it and then to see how it can influence our work that we do in the ESP&R in the different subgroups. Well, it's not very much at the moment. Ah, okay, now we get it. And there's no right, no wrong. No? I ask these questions always at the beginning of any kind of seminar that I give or training course, because it's important to understand what you understand as human factors. What is the human factor in flying a heli and using automation? Everything. Wow, not so bad. The human influence. Very good. Managing expectations, various constraints, okay. Errors, very good. Why are, what? That's the fast. Why we are so bad at doing things. Okay, I think you heard a lot about this from Bruce this morning. Okay, I think that's a lot. Thank you so far. It's just a test, as I mentioned. So we don't want to go too deep into human factors at the moment. It's more the interface. Huh? Yes, shell, very good. Okay, so we can switch back, please, to the slide. Huh? Was what? What's this? Did I miss something? Okay. Okay, at the end of the day, it's the core of every helicopter operation still. If we don't talk about autonomous flying, where the helicopter does everything and the pilot is not needed anymore, so the pilot is just the pucks, if there is a pilot, then we talk about the core of every helicopter operation. And not only, that's because I know that not all of you are helicopter pilots, but you are in different roles at different places around the helicopter life cycle. It's not only about helicopter flying, but it's also about maintaining, it's about designing a helicopter, about the whole helicopter life cycle, you can say. And it is, as we talk about human factors, human behavior, it's perceiving, thinking, feeling, emotions, and for sure, behaving, acting, or not acting if you don't know how to act, how to behave in a special emergency situation, for example, in regard to the mentioned helicopter life cycle. And it's, as we already heard over the last 1.5 days, the technology we use during flying helicopter is getting more and more complex. And a human being is happy if it can use this kind of fancy, as we see it in the smartphones technology, and that makes life as easy as we can imagine at the moment. But on the other side, there are some buts, and that's something that we would like to find out in the next couple of minutes. So, at the end of the day, beyond human factors, it's today also the question how we can optimize the relationship between technology and the human being at the end of the day. And Bruce mentioned it this morning. At the beginning of the time, it was development of helicopters. It was all around technology that enabled the people, human beings, to fly. And nowadays, it's more that technology is very much driving the business, the whole helicopter business. It's not only the helicopter business and the aviation business, it's also automotive and other areas for sure, but in this case also in our area, our beloved helicopter area. So that's at the end of the day the goal that we have, and it's beyond human factors. It's also about complexity, it's about handling technology, understanding technology, and there we get to limits. That's what Bruce mentioned also, that if we don't understand the system or the intelligence that is behind the special system and the limits of this system, we probably will run into severe problems at the end of the day. So, spot on, human factors and human-machine interface, in this case, H135. And normally, if we would have had more time, I would have brought you accident example, but in this case, it's just not enough time to do this. But just one personal experience with a very old Bell 205 in this case. Yeah, focusing too much on the technology, in this case very easy technology, which was radio communication, resulted in a very low-level flight over the Lake of Constance, in close to Switzerland, or north of Switzerland. And yeah, it was a bit of a mess, because we had fortunately someone in the back who said, have a look outside and not focus too much on this displays and information. And then the pilot in command, sitting on the right side, which was Peter, he put the helicopter up to the normal height that we had, and everything was fine. But this was just an incident that I faced using old technology, you can say, in this case. And Shell we already mentioned. So here are some of the big pictures that we already, or information that are around flying a helicopter, and I don't want to get too deep into this. It's all about which kind of a task we fulfill, what kind of an environment we have. We already talked about, if we have weather that changes, if we have visibility that changes. It's all about technology. That's our main topic of the last 1.5 days. It's all about personality also, of attitude, of human factors, you can say, in a big picture. Okay, and that's already mentioned. So now we get to the main, real important question for us. And I would kindly ask you to discuss or to think about your personal experience with automation in your role. If it's pilot, it's okay. If you have some other relations to technology, you can also use a different setting or situation for sure. And but try to, if you are a pilot or if you have someone close to you, your neighbor, someone who has some experiences with automation and flight path management, please use this experience. And think about your personal experience and think about a critical situation that you had. Mustn't have been an accident at the end, but it could have been an incident, what we heard this morning also. And to think about this critical situation where automation somehow played an essential role and perhaps made your day, saved your day somehow. That's the first task, so to get into a critical situation. And then the more important information for us is find out 1 up to 3 main contributing human factors, or factors, must not be human factors, can also be just factors, that influenced this situation, and that played a very important role in this case. And in Slido, you will find these different factors that we figured out. If you don't find your factors that you figure out on this list of factors, which are 20, you also can put in others, which is on another Slido path. So task would be now just 3 up to 4 minutes. Think about a critical situation that you had during flight, alone or together with 1 or 2 of your neighbors, and to discuss, and then think about what kind of human factors were important for you and made your day in this situation. So we can put on Slido now. Task is clear, I guess. Good. And I missed discussions, so you don't need to do it yourself in silence. Okay. Yeah, you are too focused on the technology to discuss, perhaps. But it's okay. You don't need to discuss if you have some ideas or answers. I think Slido here on the desk will just show us the results of your voting, I guess. Can I have a look at someone? Has someone opened Slido that I can see? Okay, now we have it. Perfect. Yeah, now that's what I want. That's very interesting. Because I took the order of the different items from our statistics that we officially have, and knowledge of systems, for example, is not the main part normally. not in the highest rank. Okay, let's have a look. Someone's still busy. Can we continue? Don't know. Oh, 24 people and votes. Well, I think you can still continue during I present, I guess it's, or is it? Is it open? Okay, so perhaps we continue with this at the moment. Interesting for me, we try to put a bit emphasis on the results, as I mentioned at the moment, some seconds ago. I put it, the order of the different items from the official statistics and reasons for statistics of accidents and incidents that we had in the last years. And knowledge of systems is definitely on the lower ranks normally, but it's something that we normally also can't identify if we don't do some deeper interviews or if it was a fatal accident at the end of the day. So it's very, very good that we have this open and anonymous information and answers of you. Situational awareness is something that we all know. Yeah, it is always a topic, and it was mentioned a lot over the last days or last half of the day. Workload, experience, proficiency, all things that we know. Okay, can we scroll to the other areas? No, it's just the highest ranks Slido we can show. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you so far. I think we can go back to the presentation. So here you see again all of these ideas that we had, but as I mentioned, if there are others, you can also put this into Slido. So if you see, for example, just processes or description of processes, some organizational issues or some others that were important for you in this incident that you thought about, you also can put it under others. I just mentioned these are all human factors, somehow related to our topic. So here are some, is a list of causing human factors also. We talked a lot about these factors. So for example, overconfidence, something that people like to rely on the technology they have. Once they trust, once they think, okay, I can use it, it makes sense, it makes life easier, and I trust in the technology, they really like to be confident with it, but sometimes it's perhaps good to not trust too much and to, to take over at the end of the day, which is one of the results of a lot of accidents, no? To say, okay, I have to overrule and handle the technology at that moment. Complacency is something we not know about around using of technology, but also in other areas of human factors. Using the right mode is something we heard in this presentation this morning, to be aware in which kind of a mode I am. Incorrect target setting, as it's just a part of the, an extract of the leaflet, of the EASA leaflet, so you can also already read deeper into this. It's just an extraction. Also some waypoints that are wrong, or some kind of CRM task sharing things that don't work right. That everybody thinks the other is looking for the flight path, but both are looking or having focus on the display, for example, cockpit display, that kind of stuff. Okay, I put you together something that is out of the automotive area, just to show you what kind of degrees of automation we have or we face so far in the industry. I hope I'm somehow right, because I'm not that kind of a technical guy in this case, but me as a Robinson pilot, I would say I'm in the step 0 phase, where you're just working with the technology, the simple technology that you have, not any kind of a system that helps you, beside perhaps radio communication, that kind of stuff, but it's the standard systems. And for sure the workload is the highest in this case. And then it starts from assisted flying, where we have perhaps some kind of supporting systems that make life a bit easier, for example, collision warning systems like FLAM or TCAS or something like that. And get into the second part, which is partly automated, where we also talk about stability augmentation systems that make lives a bit easier, more easier. And it ends up coming over 3 and 4 axes. I don't want to go too deep into it. Ends up into the autonomous area where we can say, okay, the pilot is just not flying anymore if he's still there, yeah? Which is probably not the nicest scenario for the future, because when we talk about drones at the end of the day, we don't need the pilot to fly anymore. Okay, so here we are with the second question, third question, but second question that is very important for us to understand where are perhaps problems, but where are problems in this area of human factors, handling, behavior around technology and automation. And the question for you, you also can discuss, but as I know, as you as a group are not very discussive at the moment. So what are for you key success factors if you think about the future of automation, of technology in helicopters? And where are perhaps also critical things where should we put our focus on as industry to continue on the way to having more and more technology in our helicopters? Also from a human factors point, but it's a key success factor also around the whole area and the whole system, not only human factors related. And it's an open question, I guess, you can put in. Can I see? Just a second. Okay, you can put in your answer open. Let me see what you answer. Mm-hmm. If I see just one word of simulator, it doesn't. It's too much of interpretation. Perhaps you could put some additional words or some kind of explanation. Or we can discuss it afterwards, perhaps. So it's a lot about training at the moment, I see, yeah? System reliability. That's a very long answer, thanks for that. So it's not so much of interpretation needed. Industry standardization, okay, that's clear. Take the pilot out of the loop. Okay. Keep it simple and short or stupid. Yes, I agree. Absolutely. KISS. Functional and compliant HMI. Balanced training. Very good approach. Yes. Again, training. Simplicity. Okay. I think, looks as if we have it, more or less. You still can add something, so we go back to the presentation, please. So a lot of factors, and we already mentioned training is a very important thing. We also know that it's all about knowledge of the systems, but and knowing how the technology works. But on the other side, we know that if we see trends and ways like future ways like artificial intelligence, it's all and algorithms playing a role in everything, in every technology that is implemented. it's even harder to understand and to get behind the system and to understand what the system is doing and what it means for the individual workplace, if it's a helicopter or somewhere else we are talking about. Some success factors that are taken out of the brochure again that we have as EHEST training leaflet. We talked about fly, navigate, communicate. Klar, at the end of the day, manage flight operation at the end. One person always looking out of the window. I think it should be clear, but as my own experience is sometimes even harder, and you just focus on something that is not out of the window, and both of the pilots are doing that, and it's really a bad flying attitude. Knowledge of the system we already mentioned, but the complexer and the harder and the detailed the systems are getting, the more detailed the systems are getting, the harder is it to understand it. And then, okay, we talk about training on the other side, and we heard about a lot of information that, for example, Airbus and Leonardo are doing around training and to really try to make the system understandable and let the pilot understand what the system is doing and what his task or her task is in the relation with the system. Cross-check, I think that's clear. We talked about the flight mode annunciator. I think Leonardo did this in the last presentation. If something goes wrong, take over. That's something you need to train for sure, also in the simulator, but also in real flying. And we heard this as key success factor. And it's not only about simulator flying, but it's also about real flying. So having both of it and both of it in a good relation to each other. Yeah, using the proper level of automation for the task, not to rely too much on automation at the end of the day. And also, if you have some kind of resources, if you have someone on board as a crew member, if you talk two pilots operation, it's normal that we have 2 persons on board. If you talk about single pilot operation, try to use the resources that you have somewhere out of the helicopter, for example, on the tower or on the ground, or use a proper flight planning, which makes life a lot easier sometimes as well. This model you know from last year or 2 years ago when I was here, so it didn't change. I just put out a bit the aircraft and automation area. So at the end of the day, for airmanship and for being able to fly a helicopter, independent of how much technology this helicopter involves, we talk about a lot of different pillars that are needed to have a good situational decision making and acting, behaving in the situation according to the task. And I don't want to talk about this in too much detail, but it's about self-discipline, about self-knowledge also. What is my fitness of the day? How much proficiency do I have? Which kind of helicopter I'm flying in? Is it one with a rotor turning to the right, to the left? What are my key emergency procedures that I perhaps should think about in relation to how the rotor is turning and that kind of stuff? But it's also about skills, competencies that I have, proficiency, experience, how much did I fly in this kind of type of the helicopter I'm sitting in. And then it's all about things that are happening around you, environment, the risk that you have with the operation, different from an emergency scenario setting like ADAC or Rega, compared to flying from one heliport to the other or from one airport to the other. It's also about the persons on board that you have. Is it, like we heard yesterday, PAX, your passenger that is somehow very interested in having a fun and very exciting flight, and how much you are able to cover this and stay with your plan and not being too risk taking in this context. And then it results, if everything of this is fulfilled and you are happy and you feel good in your role, and then it results in a good situational awareness, judging possibilities, and judgment, and situational awareness. But it's, as you see, it's also very fragile. If one of these pillars, for example, isn't working, it might change your day and your flight and the outcome of your flight. So, last question. We're like Santa Claus. We are nearly to Christmas, huh? Santa Claus. It's the wrong picture, actually. I thought I should have put in the Santa Claus in this context. If you had a wish free, a free wish to the Santa Claus, or to the, how do you call it, fairy godmother or something like that, regarding the future of automation. And now, after you heard what you've heard over the whole 1.5 days, also always in relation to flying a helicopter, because that's what we are talking about at the moment, what would this wish would be? So, if we could fulfill you one wish, the main important wish that you have in the context of automation and technology in helicopters. That's great. So you do not only focus on human factors, but also on the technology side, for example, no? Reliability of the technology, simplicity of technology, KISS again, very good. Keep the human still in the loop. I absolutely agree. Yeah. Okay. Less complexity. Take it. What is take it? I don't want to guess, but I think I know who gave this answer. Safety being the main driver. Very good. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Again, you can still continue, but for the moment, I think it's good. And it's not only about human factors, but it's always, if we talk about the core of the helicopter operation, which is a human being, it's somehow always related to human factors and the human being. And as we heard with Bruce this morning, was perfect introduction of the day. The human being has limitations, and yeah, we need to think about everything that we develop around a helicopter and that we implement as automation and technology in a helicopter, how the human being is able to handle this. And that's perhaps at the end of the day the important message that we should bring to the industry. So we can switch back to the presentation, please. Okay, so I'm with my conclusions because we are just in time, so we have a bit of wrap up at the end of this session. It's all about human factors, as I mentioned, so I don't want to talk about this again. I think it is still, and that's very good, the core of the helicopter operation. And as far as I have it, what I saw as your answers and key success factors, it should be in the next 10 years also the main and important factor. And it should always be a human being piloting a helicopter. But on the other side, we see developments like drones and autonomous flight possibilities, so we have to face these challenges that are coming with these developments. So we need to think about human factors over the whole helicopter life cycle. That's what I already mentioned. Yeah, for sure also to think about the safe operation in this context. And yeah, we should think about having the main principle, slogan, motto, you can say, that for me is important in this context is that the system has to follow the human being and the limitations of the human being, as we saw this morning, blind spots and that kind of stuff, awareness, attention, limitations. So at the end of the day, it should be not human being following the system, which is at the moment the case, I guess. We have this kind of trends, but the other way around, to think about having the human being as being the person that is working with the system, and the system needs to make life easier for the human being. Until we talk about having a pilot piloting a helicopter. So far, this is it from my side. Yeah, and always fly safe in this context. And thank you very much for your contribution. As I mentioned, we will work with your data. We will work with your answers. We put them together and aggregate them, and to see how this influences the work that we have as a group at the EASA. Thank you very much.